1,000 years in the future, humanity will be dead. Those that survive will emerge to a wreck. They'll seek remnants of what the culture, what the world that came before was. In that moment, I'd put money on them hearing a very particular sound on the wind. They will find a very certain game. Or it will find them. 2015 was an important year for games. Titles released that still influence the industry to this day, but the one that I care about the most, the one that arguably should have stayed stuck underneath the radar, that was released by just one man, became one of the most, put simply, iconic video games to ever leave a mark on the medium. What do I even contribute to any conversation around something like that? What do I say when the definitive videos on the subject already exist? I guess I just admit that I think it's one of the most interesting video games I've ever seen. Is it better than the Mona Lisa? Well, no, but it sure does mean a hell of a lot to me. Undertale effectively lives two lives. It exists as this silly little RPG made by the notoriously humble Toby Fox, an amalgamation of his influences that he was able to crowdfund to turn into a fully fledged video game. At the same time though, Undertale is one of the fastest spreading phenomena to ever strike the internet, something so powerful that when this IP now moves, fractions of the zeitgeist are still going to shift with it. It's reached that particular point of infamy where, not unlike Star Wars or Marvel, if you don't know what it is, you are in short distance of someone who likely does. Where to the people who haven't played the game, such a ubiquitous portrait of what it is and the culture around it has been painted that you don't even need to engage with it to know if it's going to be for you or not. I know a lot of what I've said can sound like hyperbole, but video proof does exist of the intense emotion that this game can draw out of people. Look at them! You'd think this was the greatest moment of their lives or something. Something on this scale seems like it would have been an idea long in the making, something specifically engineered to penetrate the industry, but that's not the case. Undertale became what it was by chance. What Toby Fox must have thought he was making became something overwhelming very quickly. Even after having made more money than he ever expected to make to build the game, critics began showering it with near-perfect scores, and the fans began to devotedly covet various aspects of the experience. Excessive writings flooded popular conversation, deconstructing its mechanics, or elevating its most beloved elements to platforms where they honestly took on lives of their own. Nothing was off limits when it came to the feverish need to create beyond the boundaries of just one game. Certain social media platforms became near weaponized to breed fan content of every kind. If Muffet the cute spider was your favourite character, then all you had to do was draw her with a new cool haircut, before renders in almost any style, fictionalized readings, original music, new independent games, merchandise, and fan art of your fan art could materialize in hours. At some point, Undertale, regardless of if you wanted it to or not, became boundless. You might have just come to that table because the game was having a positive influence on your own art, but it didn't really matter. If a piece of Undertale could be recognised in your work, intentional or not, people could, and honestly probably would, forcibly attach a relevance, an attitude, or just a need to consume to something that you may have just made for fun. So quickly could something go from just a harmless expression of love for this story to a new craze in itself. A new branch of possibilities to reanalyze, reinterpret, and re-experience every facet of Undertale through. You thought you were just coming up with an edgy rendition of the characters? Nope, you have offered up a new aesthetic for thousands of artists to make their next obsession for a few months. A game so clearly critical of the ways in which we interact with the stories that we love already was bound to develop its own unique relationship with those who came to play it. That being nowhere more apparent than what it did to Toby Fox. Where it took a few decades for people to make their own weird sense of ownership over Star Wars as vocal as we now know it to be, that happened in a fraction of the time for Undertale. The rush too on Toby Fox's part to try and minimise its growth, and maintain his game as the hillside itself, not just one chunk of the mountain that Undertale had been made into, being incredibly understandable. He infamously put it rather chillingly himself. My life has changed permanently, and will never change back. Where the instinct might be to condemn such an experience as an inherently negative one, I kind of can't help but look at it a little bit differently today. Undertale is never going to happen again. There will be other impacts similar to the one it left, sure, But that era of what the internet was is now done with. It's not gone entirely, but it's nowhere near the vocal majority that it once was. The circumstances that led to Undertale's meteoric rise no longer as possible, with the conception and popularization of games through the internet now shockingly commonplace. Undertale has changed the face of indie gaming, and it's left a legacy for new experiences to spring from. So instead of that just obsessive craze, we now get games that manage to get eyes on them that they might otherwise not have received, just for following in the same footsteps. And now, whilst we wait for that next iteration of this kind of fandom, I prefer to remember the moment as just a strange time and place to be whilst online. Undertale can be looked at as this case study on how a fandom can fold in on itself, or as this moment where people collectively, perhaps maybe for the first time, realise just what they were capable of making, and where that ability might just get them. Deltarune, Undertale's perhaps even crazier spin-off, might symbolise that fact the most. An unpredictable response to a first work, not defining Fox's ability to make the difficult choice to pick back up a pen, or punch some more numbers into a keyboard to make more of what he loves. It'd be really funny if this little game that got so big actually did nothing, wouldn't it? If this one-of-a-kind obsession came out of nowhere from a vapid, hollow piece of merchandise with nothing to say. Thank God though that's not the case. And here I go trying to do justice, explaining why anyone cared at all. For a game made by just one person, Undertale feels like it's been written by 20. There's this earnest sense of character throughout this game that shouldn't seem attributable to just one man, but that is so unmistakably Toby Fox in every genre that you encounter in this game. Whether it's the most unbearable anxiety, a dread that you do not feel in control of, or the most you have laughed in a long time, or even a feeling of accomplishment for another person. It feels like Toby Fox thought this was the only game he'd ever get to make, and so he filled it with every idea he could, and he didn't stop working on them until he'd done them all justice, until each new idea felt as satisfying as the last. I could go on about the love affairs I've had with the music and the scenery, but honestly nowhere is that character itself more apparent than, well, in the characters. I know. Big shock. These characters being a cluster of brightly coloured sprites forming some cute designs could have been enough to endear them to us. But Toby went the extra distance and attempted to imbue each monster that you come across with a role, a personality, and an energy. It doesn't really matter how you run into some of these guys, there's a vibe that builds that communicates this guy's going to be my friend, or I want them to be. Despite some outward appearances suggesting that it's maybe just the funny skeleton man doing that silly Megalovania dance, there is a cast here that's as diverse as Adventure Time, and that grows to be as lovable as that of Dragon Ball. There's Undyne, who starts as this Reaper-like presence, whose seeming aggression is just an extension of the passion that she has for the people that she cares about. Napsterbluke, the styling ghost who, even if you don't relate to, you will find solace with when it comes to just sitting with them and pretending that the world doesn't exist for a bit. Papyrus, who's just this damn mess, but is not letting that define his desire to get better. Mettaton throws a load of shit at you, but you forget all that, and you just feel good for them when they get to a point where they start to feel comfortable with who they are. Catty and Bratty, Burger Pants, Temmie, the snowman who just asks you to take a little piece of him with you on the journey. When you're with them, you will not want to leave them. And yet, when they're not there, that's when you're going to feel them the most. Where you wake up in the morning, and you notice that there's a piece of Toriel's butterscotch cinnamon pie just waiting for you to enjoy, when she never picks up the phone after you've chosen to leave her behind. Where Papyrus just can't stop picking up the phone just to check in, when you can't convince Asriel to leave with you, because he can't get past what he's done. To everyone. This is what I love the most about how Toby writes his characters. They each get this moment to humanize something that will never be human, that you reach a certain moment where you just realize you're carrying them with you. When you start to feel that, it becomes no surprise why people get so specific about the way you choose to play this game. To the uninitiated, Undertale is a game that remembers everything you do. Every choice does genuinely matter, the game going to extreme extents to enforce that fact. If you hurt these people unintentionally, or if you go out of your way to do it purposely, you trigger a chain of events that will see this world turn against you. Potential friends will face you now as nothing but an opponent. Arrivals to certain locations will be met with fear. A moment I'm never going to forget being when you find this note that just says, "Please don't hurt my family." The people who love Undertale beg that when the game asks you to treat these monsters with kindness, that you open your heart to that consideration. Your choice of actions is your own, as it is in any video game, But Toby asks us to think honestly and deeply about the implications of our actions, and doesn't give a damn about hurting your feelings if you disregarded all of it just to get to some of the game's best boss fights. A hero, by some definitions, sacrifices themselves for the world. But Undertale isn't going to let you forget if you sacrifice the world just for your own whim. It's part of the reason that Undertale just couldn't exist as anything else. It is too intrinsically reliant on how players choose to act, who they willingly become when they go against their instincts, give in to them, or do anything to rectify their choices. Yes, it is just a video game, but I don't think I'm out of line to call it one of a kind. Undertale is considered so influential for never wanting you to feel just the same thing every time you come to it, for challenging you to cease interacting with it on your terms. You finish that story and Flowey thanks you for what you've done for them, but he lets you know that the kindest thing you can now do for them is just walk away. Please don't reset the happiness that they've found. So before I go and let them do that, before I wrap up this video, I think I should come clean about something. Because yes, it's enough for Undertale to be unique for all the reasons that I've discussed, but why do I feel the need to bring it up at all? Well, it's because I had this moment recently that guaranteed someday I was going to be celebrating this game in the best way I possibly can. And in short, that's because I kind of owe Undertale a debt. My very first job after university that I walked away from just a short while ago involved me working with young people. For obvious reasons, I can't go into the specifics, but there was this instance that I'm going to try and talk about. There was an individual that I worked with, and they had this passion for making music, and despite what they thought, they were damn good at it. They made these covers of music that absolutely floored me, and they were covers of, you guessed it, Undertale music. They had for their age a skill set beyond what I was capable of, and I encouraged them to make a YouTube channel for their work, like my life frankly depended on it. I needed them to hear how good they were. Eventually they came around on the idea, and today, they have a bigger following than I do that they really deserve. You can think of all that what you will, but I'm proud to have, in my opinion, played some small part. To feel like I made a difference. For as draining and as stressful as that job became, I know a piece of why I left was based on that interaction. It evoked a need to get back to my passion. To just like this person, do and say only the things that the art I love can get me to. To connect to the things that I love in even the smallest way I can. Something I might not have listened to had it not been for this silly little game. So thank you Toby Fox for Undertale. I owe you one. This channel might not exist without it, and there might not be a smile on my face without art and those one-of-a-kind moments quite like it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I didn't think I'd be making a video this month, but I had the idea and, well, look where it's got us. I've used a lot of fan animations in this video, and they're all credited throughout the video, but if you want to see the original videos themselves, then you can find the links for them listed in the description for this video. I said video a hell of a lot there. I'll be back soon with another video that I'm really excited to show you all that I've put a lot of effort into and that I think might be some of my best work. It'll be on its way soon, but until then, take care of yourselves.